Hi, everyone. So, the event. You know, a lot has been written and channeled about this phenomenon that's been predicted for Earth and humanity for a long while now. But if this is kind of new for you, much of what I'll be saying here may at first sound unbelievable, maybe too good to be true. And if so, I just suggest you just take the information in. Feel if it might resonate with you on a deeper level than your rational mind. You know, sometimes we can know things in our heart and even in our gut that our mind really can't grasp. So just see. So in order to give some context to what I'll be saying here, I'm going to start with briefly describing what's been named the shift or ascension. If you're watching this, you're likely already familiar with these terms, but it can really be helpful to review what they mean sometimes. Just briefly, these terms are part of a paradigm which describes really well a process that both humanity and the Earth are currently experiencing, which is a very rapid and often rocky ride into much higher frequencies of consciousness known as the fifth dimension, which is essentially a consciousness of love and harmony, unity, peace, freedom, cooperation. And it's a consciousness that's very different from the consciousness that humanity has been caught in for thousands of years since what's been called the fall of consciousness. And this is known as the third dimension. And it's a consciousness which produces a reality ruled by rigid limitations and restrictions. It's one most people think it's the only reality, but it's not. This reality, third dimension, is a very limited, constrained consciousness filled with distortions and mutations of light that are known as anger, shame, separation, hatred, all that stuff, which have all, of course, created a great deal of suffering for humanity. However, because the Earth is now passing through a certain part of the galaxy, an area that it reaches about every 26,000 years, there are now new cosmic energies that are streaming onto the Earth. And they're creating the possibility for humanity to make a huge shift, a profound leap in consciousness to a much higher frequency. And this is what's happening. Now we're currently in the transitional stage of this shift, so it doesn't look that way at this time. But as has been predicted for this stage, there are many signs across the world of conflict, division, collapse, and destruction of a lot of old familiar structures and institutions in society. And as a result, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the world. We're all feeling it. You know, as the separation and the deep divisions that humanity has lived with for thousands of years are now becoming all the more visible and activated. And all of this is occurring so that it can be clearly seen and finally resolved. It's like toxins coming to the surface, you know, like when you go on a cleanse, all those toxins just come to the surface. And these are now becoming very obvious to us. We can't ignore them anymore. No institution, organization, social or political structure that's based in corruption, or greed, hatred, oppression can survive the shift that's occurring now. This is a shift towards love and oneness. So there's going to be a whole lot more of this disruption and dismantling of the old systems that we're probably going to be seeing in the days to come. And therefore, it's really helpful to remember that all this is occurring because a leap of consciousness is in the process of happening, a huge shift in our evolution as a species. And as evolutionary biologists tell us, all evolutionary leaps that occur in a species are always accompanied by great amounts of stress to the organisms that are making the leap. And there's always initially a great deal of chaos. It's just part of how evolution in form happens. Now, as a lot of us know, this evolutionary process is also happening on the individual level. Many people now are experiencing conflict, a lot of loss, and uncertainty in their personal lives. It hasn't been easy. But it's important to not let these frightening events that are occurring in the world or in our own lives cause us fear or despair, and to understand that at some point, all the chaos and disruption will diminish and eventually end, and a whole new and transformative experience on Earth will be presenting itself. And this will begin in a very dramatic way with what has been referred to as the event. So exactly what is the event? Well, the idea of the event is not new. Talk about the shift of the planet and humanity into a much higher consciousness has been around for a long, long while. But the name it's been given, the event, is fairly recent. It was initially, as far as I understand, given by someone by the name of Cobra. He calls himself an ET contactee. And the name has just stuck. Many people who'd been describing this phenomenon just began using the term, the event. Now, what I'm about to describe to you about the event is information taken from many different sources. They don't all agree on the details about it, but they do in a general sense. However, it's important to remember that this information that comes to us is really only secondhand at best. So I can't personally guarantee any of the details that are going to be accurate. But what I can tell you is that it all resonates very, very deeply within me. And it's congruent with what I have heard from my own inner guidance for a long, long time. Again, maybe not down to all the details about it, but the general ideas and the basic events that will take place afterwards. It's like once I heard about the event, it was like I remembered knowing about it. Like I've known about it for a long, long time. I just forgot. And I just remember knowing it from way, way past this lifetime. And this may be true for you too. It's just somehow familiar. Anyway, you'll just have to see what resonates for you. Just take it in, see how it feels. So, what will happen at the time of the event? Well, it is difficult to predict exactly what will actually happen, but according to many sources, it will be the beginning of a collective ascension process, a quantum leap in spiritual evolution for humanity as a whole. And it will also be a catalyst to mark the beginning of building a new Earth and creating a long-predicted golden age. It's said that initially it will bring about radical, unexpected changes to everyone on the planet. And although the changes will be immensely positive and exciting, the huge shift of consciousness that will occur may initially cause confusion and fear, especially for those who have no idea what's occurring. And this is so because it's said that the event will initially manifest with a solar flash or galactic pulse, which is described as an explosive solar event that will release brilliant light arriving directly from source through the galactic central sun and through our sun and to us and everything else actually in the galaxy. There are certain scholars who report that this pulse has occurred previously in our galaxy every 26,000 years or so. And they say that each time it's occurred, it has triggered a mass ascension on Earth. They say this phenomenon has been described in a number of spiritual texts all over the world, including the Christian Bible, and that many ancient cultures apparently hid the science of this cycle in their mythologies. But what's interesting is that there's now also scientific data and testimony from people working deep within secret space programs that actually support this idea of a solar pulse event that is due to happen in the near future. In fact, they are waiting for it. Now, according to all these sources, when the galactic pulse occurs, the incoming energies and light from the pulse are going to begin to flow through the energy field of all humans as a palpable wave of love. And it will start the process of radically transforming all matter, all energy, consciousness, and biological life as we know it. And with this, there will be a general rise in consciousness for all of humanity, although everyone will have their own individual experience of healing and inner transformation and release of past traumas. So, what can we expect to experience when this event first occurs? It's said by some sources that most people already living in a positive and a generally loving consciousness, probably people like us, will experience the event as overwhelming bliss. That we're going to need to stop whatever it is we're doing just to take in the changes. That when the wave hits, we'll only want to focus on what's happening internally. You know, all interest in our usual activities like our computers or phones or eating or talking are just going to fall by the wayside. The only thing that we're going to want to do is just breathe through what it is we're feeling and experiencing and absorb the energies of the profound love and light that are coming into us and allowing our bodies to assimilate them. And they say that the experience of this bliss may last through a number of days. Many reports say that the light with the waves is going to be unbelievably beautiful. Everything's going to look and feel lighter. It'll be like a sense of experiencing heaven on earth. You know, we'll feel a profound knowing of oneness with all of life. And we'll realize that this is what we have been waiting for our whole life, whether we've realized it or not. It's what we incarnated to experience. We will feel like we've finally come home. And they say that eventually, afterwards, our DNA that's been dormant for thousands of years will begin to be activated. Our spiritual gifts will be revealed to us, you know, like telepathic abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, all of that. And our whole perspective on life and on ourselves and on the world will be greatly shifted. And our spiritual missions will be abundantly clear to us. Now, there are some other sources who say it might not be quite this rosy when the solar flash first occurs. They note that even for those of us who are prepared and living in a high vibration, it could initially be kind of rough, simply because it's going to be so sudden and entail such a profound leap in consciousness. But that we will adjust to the changes relatively quickly if we keep just absorbing the frequencies of love and paying attention to that. But for many others who don't know what's happening, there's going to be a lot of confusion and fear, these sources say. And they're going to need a whole lot of help in understanding and adjusting to the energies. And for those people who are living in a great deal of negativity, they're probably going to be hit so hard that they may not even survive the frequencies. Now, a very interesting aspect of the event is, according to many, many sources, we have a great deal of galactic help. And I really know this inside myself to be true also. It's my experience. The first way that the galactics are helping us is getting us to the point where the event can happen. A number of sources tell us that a wide range of galactic forces are assisting humanity at this point in shifting toward the event. And they're known generally as the Light Alliance. Now, it's said that these forces are focusing on battling the dark forces of extraterrestrials that have essentially held humanity hostage for about 25,000 years. And they're engaged at this point in great battles in space and also in the inner Earth. The second way the galactics will be assisting us, we're told, is that when the event happens, they will be landing here to render aid in many different forms. First, because there may be serious Earth changes that happen with the events. Some people are predicting that. And secondly, they'll be here to assist much of humanity going through the crisis mode. Again, if you're new to this information, this may sound like science fiction, but be aware that it's very likely real because there are increasing numbers of extremely credible insiders and whistleblowers from secret space programs run by the US Navy and Air Force who have, in the past few years, courageously come forward to reveal this information. If you research it for yourself, you're going to learn that dark ET forces have existed with us for a long, long time on the Earth, in our skies, inside the Earth, and on the inner planes. And they've been using highly developed technology to keep themselves hidden and in control. They've essentially kept humanity from being able to evolve spiritually in any significant way for thousands of years. Now, all this information, of course, has officially been kept from the public due to a small group of people who are known as the cabal, the elite, the Illuminati. And they've been holding control over most of the human race by infiltrating most of our institutions through financial, political, religious, health, and mind control. And they themselves have been essentially controlled by the dark ETs. However, the really good news is that in the past few years, along with battles out in space with the ETs that are going on, there are also ever-increasing numbers of what's been called white hats in our military, in our intelligence agencies, our banking institutions, and our space programs, who have been involved in wresting control from these cabal forces for a long time, mainly behind the scenes. And there's evidence that they're now finally succeeding in bringing the cabal forces to their knees. If you research it, you're going to find that there are over 44,000 sealed indictments in the United States waiting to be unsealed. There is no mention of these in the mainstream news, but you can see it for yourself on official government sites online. And there are many alternative internet news programs that are now saying we may soon be seeing a series of mass arrests. Some sources say they'll be opened after August of this year, because this is when a whole slew of new federal judges are going to be sworn in order to preside over the cases. Who knows about any of this? Time will tell. But either way, many, many signs that the cabal appears to be desperate at this point are occurring. And some of these members are making deals, apparently, behind the scenes, squealing their way into immunity. At any rate, the question remains, what can we expect to happen after the event occurs? So we're told that on the physical level, we will see first, like I say, the arrests of the cabal, which, like I've been saying, may start even before the event and just be really brought to a conclusion afterwards. The second thing that we can expect is a huge disclosure of information through the mass media and also what's been called learning centers that are going to be set up. And these are going to be releasing information explaining the event, mass arrests, the ET presence on the planet, how humanity has been enslaved for thousands of years, and how we've never known our true history that has involved a number of ET races. Again, this disclosure may happen before the event. Some people are predicting that the real truth about 9/11 may come out this September 2018. We'll see. Anyway, the third thing that it's predicted to happen after the event is the reset of all financial systems across the planet and the release of prosperity funds for all of humanity. There is evidently tons of gold and assets in the ground out there, tons of it that's been hoarded, enough that could bring everyone on the planet out of poverty. Everyone's basic needs would be covered, and people wouldn't even need to work if they didn't need to. This has been said in a number of different places and sources. It's just amazing when you think of that, just that alone. And there are some people who are saying that this reset could take place this October 2018. Again, we will see. The fourth thing that's been predicted after the event would be the introduction of new political, educational, healthcare, energy, and food production systems that will be set up. The fifth thing, like I said, would be first contact with many of the benevolent ETs who have been assisting humanity toward liberation and ascension, and who will join us to help create the new Earth. Isn't that exciting to think about? And then the sixth thing, the last thing is, and very importantly, is the introduction of spectacular new techniques and technologies which have been on the planet for decades, but not available to the public, that have come in through these higher evolved ETs and that the cabal has been hoarding for themselves. These technologies are going to provide amazing health benefits and free energy and a lot of other benefits to help people in the world thrive at long last. And like some of these other things, some of these technologies are already being manufactured by people. Not a great many of them, but they're somehow able to get the instructions on how to create these technologies. So they're already being manufactured. Very, very exciting. So the big question is, of course, when is the event going to happen? Well, the date of the event is unknowable at this point, except that it may well be soon. It depends on many factors, including, like I said, the complete liberation of the planet from the dark ET forces and the dismantling of a certain kind of bomb that's evidently more powerful even than nuclear bombs, that they're in place there, and they're in the process of dismantling them. Second thing is the removal of the last of the cabal members who are still attempting to hold on to power. And this is what has evidently postponed the event several times in the past, according to certain sources. that the cabal has been more pervasive than anyone ever realized, and that dark ET control has been greater than anyone anticipated. But at this point, very positive progress is being reported over and over again. And yet, the time of the event also depends on the consciousness of humanity. And this is important for us to keep in mind, because this consciousness needs to be at a certain level of awareness and readiness in order to make a huge leap into higher consciousness with as much ease as possible. And the timing will evidently further be determined by certain astrological alignments, and also by final preparation and readiness of new systems and institutions that are going to be put into place. So all this needs to happen, but there are many signs that we're now nearing the time for the event to take place, at least within the next few years, if not sooner. Some sources are predicting a lot is going to be happening around disclosure this summer and fall, and especially in November, which may precipitate the event. And we're also now in, I think, what's called a corridor of eclipses that are occurring. There's one that happened about a week ago. The next one, a really big one, a solar event, is going to be, our solar eclipse is going to be happening on July 27th, and then another lunar eclipse on August 11th. And these are generally events that really can speed up whatever is happening and bring stuff to the fore. Now, for what it's worth, there's an insider by the name of Corey Goode. Many of you probably are aware of him. He's one of the ones who spent 20 years as part of a secret space program. And he said that he learned in this program from the scientists who were all part of it, that the solar flash, which he calls the solar sneeze, which I think is cute, that it could occur in 2018 or 19. And this is because the sun during this time is still in what's called solar maximum. Evidently, the sun has cycles. And then he says, from 2020 to 22, the sun will be going into solar minimum, which evidently is not an optimal time for the event to happen. But then he says in 2023 and 24, we're going to be back into solar maximum. So if it doesn't happen by the end of 2019, we'll probably be waiting till then. And there's other information giving other data, but either way, one sign that we're probably close is, as I say, the fall of the cabal that is already seeming to be happening. Another sign is, increasing number of favorable reports about the Light Alliance's success in winning the battles in space and the dismantling of the Archon grid that's around the world. And yet another sign are the huge numbers of people who are now waking up, both to who they are on a spiritual level and also to the disclosure information that's streaming across the internet at this point, even despite all the censorship that's happening about the cabal and humanity's plight in dealing with them. So there are two kinds of awakening happening here, as I see it. There's our spiritual awakening as an individual and our awakening to the truth about humanity's situation. And both of these are important. And it's clear that there's a huge awakening occurring on the planet on both levels. Very exciting. So once all these things occur, and with everything else in place, the event is expected to happen. We just need to be patient and trust it will all happen in perfect divine timing. But at the same time, there are many of us now, since early 2018, who are reporting that we're already experiencing what could be the beginnings of the solar flash coming in as waves of energy. Perhaps you felt them. There's a lot of love and bliss with them, you know, just causing the opening of the heart, which, as we know, is one of the primary experiences of the shift into the fifth dimension. And we've also found it's easier to stay positive no matter what's happening, and to experience 5D consciousness more often. I've found that if you can just shift your awareness toward these waves, just knowing that they're there, you may be able to experience them and discover how you can effortlessly begin to ride the love energies that these waves bring. And I sense they're getting stronger and stronger as time goes on. Also, through the healing work that I'm doing with people, I'm finding there seem to be huge energies boosting and pushing people into higher gear for doing their spiritual mission at this point. So it may be that the event won't be just a one-time event. There could be powerful pulses that continue to occur both before the main pulse and then afterward as well. In other words, a more gradual process that could even possibly happen over a period of years. There's no knowing at this point. But the main thing to remember is it's in our future, and most of us alive today are going to be experiencing this. And as we approach it, we will likely be experiencing more and more positive energies that are streaming onto the earth in preparation for it. So what does this all mean for us now at this time? You know, it's very exhilarating to contemplate it, right? Definitely a gift beyond words that we can look forward to with a great deal of excitement and relief. But does this then mean we can just sit back and wait for it to happen, assuming we'll all just automatically ascend at that point into 5D? Maybe, but it's my guess probably not. As I understand it, the event will not be a free pass into 5D. It will likely only be the beginning of the shift into 5D. The event and ascension are not the same thing. They're not interchangeable terms. Yes, we're all going to be lifted into a much higher frequency of love and wholeness when the event occurs. Our entire lives will change considerably for the better. And perhaps certain really highly evolved individuals will shift directly into 5D at that time. But my sense is that for most of us, it may be too radical a shift to make all at once, especially if it happens in the very near future, both for our comfort and also for serving our highest evolutionary potential. A full shift may need to be somewhat more gradual a process. You know, even if we've been functioning from a fairly high frequency most of the time, such a sudden shift could initially create instability and fear if we're still holding on to any 3D attachments, or beliefs, goals, or relationships. Therefore, it seems important for us to continue now on whatever path of healing and awakening we're currently following, and to make it very important at this point in our lives, so that we can be best prepared to use the energies of the event when it happens for our evolutionary development. In one way, nothing will have changed in that although the event will give us an enormous boost and healing will be easier, we will still be responsible for our own awakening into higher consciousness. And if we know we're here to assist humanity and Earth through these times of the shift, and many of us do have that sense, it's especially important to prepare ourselves for the event now, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, so that we can be the most effective in our roles when the time comes to assist others in adjusting to the new frequencies. and also to the new disturbing information that's going to be coming out. In particular, many people are going to be greatly disturbed by the disclosure of crimes that have been committed by many high-profile political, financial, and corporate figures that they may have respected a lot, including crimes such as human trafficking, pedophilia, and actually a lot worse. And there is abundant evidence already of these crimes. Also, although it's clear that a lot will initially be transformed miraculously by the event, there will still be a huge amount of work to be done to clean up the messes on the earth itself. And also within all social, financial, political, educational, and health institutions. It's going to take some time and concerted effort and powerful intention to help align these institutions with the new energies. But this is when all of us who know that we're here to assist in creating the new earth will finally have the opportunity to step forward and offer our skills and our love in very powerful ways. So, being intellectually aware of what will likely be happening when the event occurs is helpful, right? However, there's a lot more preparation we can make on other levels if we choose to, in order to meet the energies of the event when it happens with as much ease and joy and empowerment as we possibly can have. In particular, emotional healing of all negative patterns that are still running our lives is really important. You know, it's just time to get really honest with ourselves and see what we can do to process the emotions and the conflicts that are involved in these patterns so that we can resolve them and release them. Many people are currently experiencing the resurfacing of a lot of old, unresolved emotional patterns and the reliving of past traumas around these patterns. If this is happening for you, rather than despairing about this, see it as a sign that you're getting close to a huge release of old karma. In my experience, this is happening for a great many people now. And, you know, just see if you can stay positive and just keep clearing it all out as it comes up and be willing to let go of anything that is preventing you from being in as high a vibration as possible. And trust that in doing this, new situations, new people, new events will be coming into your life, bringing even greater joy and love to you. Now, if you're like most good-hearted people I know, you've probably already learned very well how to be of service to other people, right? You feel a natural compassion for the suffering of others, and you're drawn to assisting them when you can. And this is an important aspect of higher spiritual consciousness. We all know that. However, what you may not be so good at is being of service to yourself. And in particular, knowing how to love yourself unconditionally. It's important to understand that if you're going to shift into 5D, it is essential to learn how to love yourself unconditionally. And the event is going to assist you with this, but you can get a head start on it now and be all the further ahead when it happens, and then be all the more effective in whatever role you're going to be playing after the event. Now, if you've been on a healing path for a while, you may have been attempting to learn how to fully love yourself for some time now, and you've probably learned it's more easily said than done, right? Maybe over and over again, no matter how much work you've done on yourself, you keep encountering self-judgment, self-doubt, guilt, shame, or fear. Getting past any of these emotions is just not easy. In fact, learning to love yourself unconditionally can seem almost impossible at times. So often these emotions can arise so quickly, there seems no way to stop them. And it can feel as if experiencing these emotions is just a natural part of who you are, that it's appropriate for you to be feeling these emotions. They feel accurate. You automatically assume you should be feeling them because on some level you believe yourself to be inherently flawed or inadequate or inferior in certain ways, and that you need to fix yourself around these things. You somehow need to earn your way into okayness through hard work on yourself. Is any of this familiar? Now, you may understand intellectually that this is not really so, but it's much more difficult to know this on the emotional level. It can feel as if your lack of feeling okay just as you are is appropriate because you're not okay. There's such a deep programming about this inside of most people, it can feel like you can never successfully eradicate it. Now, the first thing that I'd like to explain to understand about this experience is that, yes, there is a deep programming within you like this, that very powerfully keeps bringing up self-doubt and fear and shame and guilt, self-judgment, no matter how irrational it may seem at times. However, it actually isn't an issue that's personal to you. Your difficulty with experiencing and maintaining a sense of self-worth came with the package known as the human body that you entered into in coming into an incarnation on the earth. Now, psychologists have generally called this negative inner voice or feeling the superego, or the inner critic, believing it to just be a natural part of the human psyche, and this is understandable. But what's interesting to me is this guy called Cobra. He tells us that this superego wasn't part of the original human blueprint, that it is something that has been added by the dark forces who've kept humanity under control for thousands of years by inserting it into every human at birth. That is actually a type of AI technology that is known as the primary implant. Now, when I first read about this, I've got to tell you, it really resonated with me. I can remember learning about the superego decades ago, long time ago. And from the beginning, I kept thinking, there's something off about this superego. This isn't natural, that this isn't supposed to be inside of us. But I can never prove that was true. Anyway, he's saying that it's true, and it really rings for me. He says it's attached to the pineal gland on the etheric level. And that's exactly where I feel it. And its main purpose is to keep us in a position of feeling separate from source, to forget who we are. It's designed to keep us feeling weak, unempowered, and in fear. And it's been very effective. Now I know if this is new to you, it probably sounds bonkers, like science fiction, conspiracy theory, but maybe for just a moment, tune into the possibility that this might be so. When you contemplate it, you can realize it's something that makes sense of so many things and answers so many questions about why it is so difficult to evolve into higher consciousness, despite all the inner work you do, all the spiritual practice you've done, probably for many lifetimes. Why it seems to take inordinate intention, awareness, and practice to keep reminding ourselves that we are one with Source. It also explains how we often feel governed and controlled by negative beliefs about ourselves and fearful about survival, even when there's no apparent reason to feel these things. Now, the good news is that the hold that these negative forces have on us through these implants is now greatly weakening at this point because humanity is waking up. And when the event occurs, the implant will probably just disintegrate. That's my guess. But meanwhile, it is still here with us at this point. So it's important to understand its presence within you, whatever you want to call it or whatever you want to conceive it to be. There is this thing inside of you that is unfriendly to you. Because in recognizing this, you can then learn to catch those automatic attacks of guilt or shame or fear and not give them a whole lot of energy. You can just remember that this inner negative voice or feeling is not you. It's not even a natural part of you. It's simply something that's with you as part of your experience of being in a physical body on 3D Earth at this time. So when you hear or feel this voice telling you something's wrong with you, see if you can catch it from automatically falling into guilt or shame. And don't defend yourself or try to convince this voice that you really aren't as bad as it's saying you are. That just strengthens its hold on you. Instead, you can remind yourself that you're not inherently bad or flawed. You're simply a soul caught in human incarnation during very challenging times, and that you're attempting to wake up against tremendous odds with the cards automatically stacked against you. Can you see how, when you take this in, compassion for yourself can just arise in a natural way? Once you realize this, you can then spend time focusing on that little self inside of you who's been bullied by this internal program voice all your life, and just comfort it with love and understanding and compassion. This is not about feeling like a victim or giving up responsibility for yourself because this thing is with you. It's about taking charge and actively countering the implant with love for yourself. This is really powerful when you can do this. Because as you begin to do it, you'll see that the hold that that voice and the negative emotions have on you will diminish greatly. And you'll find yourself rising a lot more rapidly in frequency and be able to hold yourself there a lot more easily. Now, this isn't to say you'll never make what could be called mistakes or never do anything hurtful to others that needs to be corrected. You know, we all do at times. It's just part of living in 3D. And it's part of our learning, our evolution in consciousness. But with clarity about the profound difficulty that exists in our current reality that you're living in, it can be a lot easier to avoid falling into automatic shame or guilt about yourself. You can simply see where a correction needs to be made, and you take care of it in a neutral, loving way. And then self-forgiveness, it can just happen as a natural occurrence. And in doing this, you can then also see that your personality with, you know, all its 3D distortions and struggles isn't really who you are anyway. In reality, you are a soul, a magnificent multi-dimensional being of light. And your personality is just like clothing you've been wearing for a long time. You can take it off. And you can decide to wear another higher dimensional outfit for a change. You know, one of self-love and self-respect and joy and confidence, well-being. Okay, another way that you can ready yourself emotionally for the event is to evaluate your relationships at this time. How harmonious are they? In particular, have you resolved the old childhood conflicts and hurts and disappointments and anger toward family members you grew up with? If not, you know, it's really time to do this. Even if family members aren't ready to clear things with you, you can heal your own part of any rift or any wounding with them on your own. It's just really time to let all that stuff go so that you can get on with your life and your spiritual development. Now, if you're with a partner or a spouse, you can ask yourself, is this relationship truly nurturing to you at this point? Are you feeling deeply loved and respected by this person? And do you deeply love and respect them? Are you able to grow spiritually and shift into the deepest aspect of who you are while being in an intimate relationship with this person? If not, it may be time to decide to either really find a way to make it work for both of you, or it might be time to separate. You can ask yourself, are you staying together simply out of a fear of being alone? These are important questions to ask yourself. If you're finding relationship issues are really up for you at this time, bringing up a lot of hurt and anger and blame, just know it's time now to resolve them and to take charge of the process. Seek ways to heal the issues, because if you don't, you may find that life has a way of resolving them for you, often in unpleasant ways. I think we've all experienced that kind of thing. Remember, you can't take your 3D baggage with you into 5D. Now, one phenomenon that's causing relationships for many people are those powerful waves of the event that are beginning to stream onto the earth, because they're causing an increasing divide between those souls who've decided to shift towards 5D at this time and those who have not. One way to understand what's occurring is to see what's been described as two Earths that have been shifting further and further apart. Now, this doesn't refer to two physical Earths, simply to two groups of people who are functioning in increasingly divergent frequencies. Those still functioning and very comfortable in 3D, and those shifting now towards 4D and 5D. And at some point, those souls choosing to continue living in 3D reality for whatever reason, they will no longer be here on Earth when it does shift into 5D. Some of them are going to choose to die beforehand, and they may be able to come back later and continue shifting into 5D at that point. And others, it said, will be taken away to other places in the galaxy in which 3D is still functioning for their further evolution. Now, what can be difficult is if you find that certain family members or old friends or your spouse or partner are souls who probably have not chosen to shift to the 5D Earth. And this can be a really difficult situation to experience. But if you find you're wanting to spend less time with the people you've been close to in your past, feeling as if they now seem to drain you or just bore you to tears, this may be a sign that it's time to change how you're relating to them. Of course, you can still continue to love them. That doesn't go away necessarily. But you may sense a shift happening in your relationship with them. Either that your paths are going in separate ways, or that they seem to be falling way behind you in the shifting that they are doing. And it just becomes increasingly difficult to be with them. Now, the event will inevitably make relationships that survive the shift a lot easier to engage in. They're going to be a lot more enjoyable, a lot more harmonious. However, the principle of like attracts like is going to be a whole lot stronger. So you'll likely find yourself wanting to spend more time with people who are vibrating at a similar frequency. And this may include new people you don't even know about yet. So that's two ways you can emotionally begin to prepare yourself for the event. Focus on learning how to fully love yourself, really make that important, and also evaluate your relationships and see what you decide about them. In general, it's about seeing where you're still attached to old, comfortable patterns that are no longer serving you, and they're holding you back from living in the highest frequency possible. So, how about spiritually? How can you prepare yourself spiritually for the event? Your preparation probably includes what you're already doing to increase your spiritual awakening. As we know, there's a great many paths out there that you can choose to take, in which you can continue to discover the essential truth of who you are as a divine multidimensional being, or as simply consciousness itself, depending on which path you are choosing. However, I'd like to say, if you've just been a dabbler in meditation until now, it may be important to try to establish a meditation practice at this point and to make it a priority in your life. The shift is about going inward, about becoming familiar with your inner worlds, about getting answers from your own inner guidance, and learning how to maintain harmony and inner peace. And in my opinion, there's little to compare to daily meditation practice for increasing this spiritual growth and awareness. Even 15 minutes a day can be helpful if you just keep doing it. It really brings results for you. And another practice I would suggest that can be helpful is becoming extra vigilant about your thoughts and the emotions you dwell on as you go about your daily life. It is really important to really take charge of your thoughts and emotions that you're allowing your mind to focus and dwell on. And in particular, if you're still engaging in a lot of negative thinking and emotional reactions to events happening around you and in the world, you might want to stop to contemplate this. Old habits like this, it can be so ingrained, it can be hard to be aware of them. You have to become really vigilant and just watch yourself as you go throughout your day. Now, I know it's understandably difficult to accept with any kind of equilibrium much of what is occurring in the world, or I should say seems to be occurring, because it's hard to know for sure. There is so much fake news out there that's reported both in the mainstream media and on the internet. But negative reactions of anger, distress, fear, blaming, despair are not helpful in keeping your vibration high or in assisting the collective consciousness to rise out of fear and anger. In particular, I find it's really important that we become aware of any ways we may be adding to the elements of polarization and separation that are currently increasing in the world, through our judgments and reactions to certain political personalities or groups, including the cabal. Staying in our hearts with compassion for everyone, no matter who they are, is essential. And remaining neutral when others around us begin judging or complaining. That's also important. You can just stay silent. You don't have to get involved in those conversations. Now, at the same time, it is helpful to process painful, negative emotions that continue to arise over and over again. It's important not to ignore them or to pretend they're not there. That doesn't work anyway. If you find yourself obsessing about certain things with intense emotions over and over again, it really is time to be with those emotions. Try not to push them away or distract yourself or try to rise above them. Take time instead to be with yourself compassionately when these things arise. Just allowing the emotions to be part of your experience at this time, not making them wrong in any way. Know that if they're arising during these times of transition that we're in now, they are attempting to be released, not gone over, not gone into, not dwelling on them. They're here to prepare you for the new energies coming in. But you need to be with them first before you can release them. Also remember, there's a lot of help available to us from the inner realms at this time. There are beings who are so eager to assist us through our healing process into higher awakening and transformation. The ascended masters are all there, the archangels, benevolent galactics, they're all accessible to us now. We simply need to ask for their assistance. And I'll tell you, in my experience, they are here like this, and they are really, really powerful in their help. So, we've looked at intellectual, emotional, and spiritual preparation. How about physical preparation? Is there anything we can do for that? Yes, there is. Since the event will inevitably initially bring about a radical disruption in our everyday functioning of the world, I mean, you can just kind of imagine it, it's probably wise to prepare yourself ahead of time to be able to keep going on the physical level for a few days in a comfortable way, or maybe even a couple of weeks after it happens. So, like for any emergency, if you've done preparation, some of the suggestions can be keep an extra 2 weeks of food and water on hand. Make sure you have an up-to-date supply of any medications you might need. Keep extra cash hidden away at home, and remember where you've hidden it. And keep your vehicle gassed up to at least half full. These precautions are also good to take at this point during the shift due to the fact that serious earth changes have been predicted for the times ahead. And this is by just regular scientists out there. And as we can see, a lot is already happening. A lot of volcanoes are erupting, a lot of earthquakes are being experienced. So who knows what could happen, but with preparation, you can kind of relax, just knowing you've done all you can to provide comfort for yourself and for your loved ones, should that happen for you. And another way to prepare physically for the event is to begin eating as healthfully as possible, which may mean following through on commitments you've made to yourself in the past, perhaps, like maybe really stopping sugar, going off of junk food altogether. Pay attention to foods you might be allergic to or addicted to and go off of those. Also, of course, healthy exercise is really important, and getting as much rest and sleep as possible. A lot of people are finding they're needing a lot more sleep than before. With all the major changes that are going to be happening, this is a time you really want to be as fit and healthy as possible so that your body can make the shifts it needs to in absorbing the new energies with ease. Our bodies are really dense, and they're not keeping up with our consciousness. It can be really, really difficult. All kinds of ailments can show up, but they're just ascension symptoms. At any rate, lastly, let's ask, is there anything we can do to help bring on the event? Now, it seems that the 100th monkey principle applies here, at least in a certain kind of way, and that is a critical mass of humanity needs to wake up. The more people who wake up, the sooner the event will be able to occur. And one thing you can do is to join one of the groups that are currently meditating together on a regular basis. There's a lot of them around the world you can read about, you know, and they focus on the event and they help, you know, bring humanity forward to shift it toward the event. And as a lot of us know, there's a lot of power in focused, coordinated group meditation. So you can go online and just find where these group meditations are. And you can also include a focus on the event and creating the new earth in your own personal meditations. All of it really does help immensely. And of course, whatever you choose to do it with love and compassion for all souls currently on earth. We're all in this together. We're all really one consciousness, whether we agree with each other about what's important or not. And even those who are not shifting to shift into 5D at this point need our love and support for their further evolution as souls. And perhaps the most important thing each of us can do is to just do our best to stay in as high a consciousness as possible, feeling positive and optimistic and loving, understanding, compassionate, and just shine our light and our love everywhere, on everyone. And to remember that there really are increasing numbers of us who are waking up and who are aware of what is in process. And in my experience, we can tune into this collective energy whenever we feel dragged down in some way, and just let it gather us and give us love and support. You know, we are a collective consciousness that's developing more and more strength. And together, we can keep remembering that we are returning to the fifth dimension, our home, which is basically a return to love. And keep in mind that together, we can all make it through these exciting and sometimes challenging final days before the event, and then through the event, and then assist the rest of humanity to do so as well. So that's it on the event for now. I send you much love and many blessings to you on your journey home.